So to kick this off, hi, my name's Charles Wooden. I'm the CEO of Geekdom. I have the absolute pleasure to work with some amazing people. And so I would love for us to just take a quick moment and recognize the team that put this all together. So if you're a Geekdom staff member, please raise your hand for everybody. And can I get a round of applause for this amazing team? Thank you. I have that. It's just one of the best teams I've ever worked with, so I really appreciate it. So before we kick this off, I do want to say we owe this entire innovation forum to one in particular person. Erica, could you raise your hand, please? This is Erica Myrick. Erica is our business development manager, and she is just amazing at making these types of things happen. The one thing she hates, though, is attention and stages, so give her one more round of applause, and we'll get this party started. So the idea behind this innovation forum was to help the growing tech ecosystem be aware of all the players that are around so that we can collaborate and so that we can help solve each other's problems together. And that's exactly what this forum's all about. And so today we have a group of amazing speakers that are going to be telling you about it. But before we get started, I do want to call out and say thank you to all of our sponsors, San Antonio Express News. Anybody here from San Antonio Express News? Get a huge round of applause for them. The Bitdefender team, I know we've got Daniel over here and the rest of the Bitdefender team. Our good friends over at CodeUp, can we get a huge hand for CodeUp? And then of course the documentation team always coming out in force, thank you guys. So real quick, I wanted to take a moment. Those of you who are not aware, yesterday Geekdom had a really huge announcement. We announced a partnership with an amazing organization called Generator. The founder of Generator, Troy, is right up here. He's going to be joining me in a second to tell you a little bit about the announcement, but I just want to give you some quick highlights. Yesterday, we announced that in 2022, we are going to have the Generator Cybersecurity Accelerator starting here in San Antonio, which is an amazing thing. Round of applause for that. And as a part of what our role, Geekdom's role in this, is that Geekdom's really taken on trying to lead a lot of the innovation that's happened here in the city. And the way that we identify that is by saying that we're here to build San Antonio one startup at a time. And our goal for the next 10 years is to launch the next 500 startups with 75% of them calling San Antonio home. And a partnership with Troy and Generator is going to be a huge part of that, because what this accelerator is going to allow us to do is bring in some really high growth, cybersecurity focused startups here to the Alamo City, where we're able to get them the information that the team from Generator has to be able to accelerate their growth very rapidly. And then ideally we can convince them that this is the place, San Antonio is the place to continue to build those efforts. And so to tell you just a little bit more about the accelerator itself and a little bit of background about Generator, Troy, would you mind coming up and just giving them a quick highlight?
You bet. Thank you, Charles. Hello, everyone. I'm Troy Vossler. I'm one of the co-founders of Generator. We are so happy to be here in San Antonio. I'd like to say we had a warm welcome in two ways. One, I'm based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and when I got on my airplane earlier this week, it was like 32 degrees and very different here, so warm. But then just the community. I mean, I think the crowd here, the crowd and the excitement at the announcement yesterday was just, I think, a testament to the awesome community here in San Antonio. As Charles mentioned, we are announcing the Generator Cybersecurity Accelerator. We are currently accepting applications right now from startups not only locally, but throughout the United States and really throughout the world. We're going to be selecting the best 5 startups. We're investing $100,000 into each of them. They'll be working with us for at least 3 months out of the Geekdom offices. And like Charles mentioned, it's then on the community, the subject matter experts, the tremendous density of cybersecurity knowledge and network that exists here in the city to convince them to relocate here and prove that San Antonio is a great place to do business. If I have kind of 3 asks of you all, it would be 1, please encourage any cybersecurity startups that you know in your networks to apply to this program. We're currently accepting applications at generator.com/cybersecurity. 2, we're currently hiring a managing director. So this will be the lead Generator team member that's based on the ground here in San Antonio that will be leading that program. If you know anyone in your network interested in that managing director role, please direct them to me, any of the folks at Geekdom, as well as the job posting is listed on the generator.com website. And lastly, for any of you that are interested in being mentors or investors or collaborating with these startups that we'll be having in the Geekdom space starting next year, please again go to generator.com/cybersecurity. So thank you to San Antonio for such a warm welcome, and thank you to Charles and the Geekdom team. We're thrilled to be here.
Thanks, Troy. Awesome. So before I pass it off, just two really quick things. Number one, Erica just told me that there's going to be lunch on your way out. Is that correct? So you guys will have some lunch boxes to be able to take once all the forum is done. And then the last thing I did want to mention is that this was a collaboration. Erica ended up working with some amazing people to pull this forum together. One of them you're going to be meeting today, Paul Guerra, who's the CISO for StockX. And then another gentleman who's the CIO of Pabst. If you guys are not familiar with them, I'm sure you drank them in your younger days. Pabst Blue Ribbon, maybe you drink them now because I think it's cool and hip. But yeah, he is the CIO of Pabst. His name is Ed Gustafhoven. I think I said that right. I hope so. But yes, but before I do anything else, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out today, and I'm going to pass it off to Paul Guerra to go ahead and take this away.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it. Thank you, Troy. Isn't that exciting news? Woo! Yeah. All right, we have a great panel for you today. So we're going to do some introductions. So Daniel, can you please kick us off?
I'll be happy to. Hey folks, how you all doing? So my name's Daniel Clayton. I run security services and support at a company called Bitdefender. Bitdefender's been around for about 20 years, traditionally a security software company, but you know, bad guys are innovating, and so we fairly recently made the decision that if we were going to help our customers defend themselves in today's threat landscape, we needed to provide a people component to the service. So we've actually just opened an office here in town, in the Frost Tower. We built a security operations center here, and we're providing 24/7 detection and response capability to customers. So I'm super pleased to be here. I have the opportunity to speak with these guys again. I've known most of them for a long time, but I'm pleased to be here, and thanks for having me.
Awesome, Daniel. Thank you. Karen.
Sure, I'm Karen O'Reilly-Smith. I'm the Chief Security Officer here at Rackspace. I've been in Rackspace for about 2.5 years now. I've spent about 20 years in the cybersecurity field, anywhere from healthcare, financial, technology, and travel. I'm happy to be here, especially talk to former Rackers here and be partnered with them today. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. Brandon, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. So first off, just want to say thank you, Geekdom, everybody, for putting this together. This doesn't happen by accident. This is a fantastic event. I'm delighted to be speaking with you all. I'm Brandon Pinzon. I'm the Chief Security Officer for Argo Group. I really started off my career working in banking, so worked with a lot of engineering teams, got a chance to have a really broad breadth of experience, and then got to build a security program. Got to move over to Rackspace and lead a fantastic compliance and enterprise risk management program, and then got to build a wonderful privacy and data protection program ultimately here at Argo. So delighted to be here, excited to be talking about what we're talking about today.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. So a little bit about me. My name is Paul Guerra. I've done 4 security transformations, one with a couple of these guys at Rackspace, then at Argo, and then Yahoo. You may have heard of the Yahoo data breach, 3 billion accounts impacted. I got the opportunity to help remediate that particular breach, and now I'm at StockX. Does anybody know who StockX is? A couple of you? Okay. If you don't know, ask your kids or ask your nephews. They know exactly who StockX is. So, all right, without further ado, we have a couple questions. So, the last couple years with COVID, with everything else, things have been a little bit crazy. How has the risk landscape changed from your perspective? So, Daniel, I'll kick it off to you first.
Yeah, happy to. I think so. There's lots of things we could talk about, right? From ransomware attacks to supply chain attacks, the types of new threats that we're seeing in the threat landscape today. But I kind of think of it a little bit differently. I think that we're living in a time at the moment where technological evolution is faster than it's ever been. And if anything, it's accelerating, right? Look at the devices, the wearables that we're using as consumers, and it's true in businesses as well, right? We're constantly being asked to incorporate new technologies, new technology platforms into our businesses to make our customers' lives better and easier and more convenient and all of those things. But one of the biggest challenges for us as security people is that every single one of these innovations, every single one of these new platforms that we're asked to incorporate into the business, it comes with a set of vulnerabilities as well. And like anything else, those vulnerabilities, they have to be identified, they have to be managed, and they have to be mitigated. And this is really challenging for us because the business is thinking about the business. How fast do we need to go? What do our customers want? How can we be more efficient? And it's not about today being 4 or 5% more efficient like we were asked to be in the past. Businesses are now being asked to be 10x more efficient than they were in the past. So cloud platforms, microservices, serverless environments, all of these things, they all come with a new set of risks. And I think this is one of the biggest things that security teams just constantly have to try and stay on top of and to deal with today.
Oh, that's great, Daniel. Karen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think definitely ransomware. I mean, we're definitely seeing an uptick in it. And I think what we're seeing mostly is customers and clients, coming to us and asking for, what do I do? Am I prepared? Do I have enough? Same with team members across, Rackspace and other companies. I think there's more of an interest. It used to be, that's cybersecurity's problem. And I think now the enterprise is realizing it's everyone's problem. So there's a lot more questions, a lot more education that we spend on. And I think during COVID-19, we really worried about remote workers. We sent everyone home to work from home. That's great, that's wonderful. But did we protect them on the way in? Do we have those VPN connections? Do we have the right security to know that they're coming in on secure connection? Because we're passing a lot of data back and forth in companies. So those are really what we're seeing the most of right now.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Brandon, can you talk a little bit about some of the risks that you're seeing and just maybe a little depth on ransomware and the other pieces like cyber insurance as well?
Yeah, just to parlay off of what Karen and Daniel mentioned, what we've really been able to understand is that resiliency matters, right? And that matters not just in the protection of your systems, but who are you working with? You need to be able to answer the questions, who are you working with from a customer perspective, from internally working with. And so you're seeing a lot of the strategies being more identity-centric and more data-centric. And then when it comes to your resiliency, it's really important to understand, look, if you do have something that happens, like a COVID pandemic, and you're working with data and you have to have access to data, how good are you? And how do you know? How are you able to prove it? So whether it's through in cyber insurance products that have gone up significantly, it used to be where you'd get 30 questions, and then here's your policy. Now it's hundreds of questions, increased scrutiny, making sure that you're asking very poignant questions. How much data do you have? Where is it located? What are you doing about it? How are your backups? Very informed questions based on what we've seen in the landscape. I think the other component to this is just really making sure that you're able to focus on where your data is coming and going, and you're able to secure that as you're receiving your data. So that's very, very important, not just in all of this, but the regulatory landscape as well, right? So we've seen 16 states this year pass some form of cyber breach notification, some involving some self-attestations, as well as increased regulatory and other underwriter scrutiny. So a huge change in just what used to be, let's secure our systems. Now it's let's secure everything and make sure you're resilient.
Can I add something?
Yes,
fast?
please do.
So I think ransomware is really interesting, right? And the idea of resiliency as well is really important. Ransomware is built on the idea that we're going to spend money to get back up and running again, right? To get the business back on its feet again after we've been encrypted. And we know that bad actors operate more and more and more like businesses, and we see that more with the ransomware groups than all of the other bad actors as well. I mean, to the extent that they've got salespeople and support people and even marketing people out there on the dark web selling their ransomware as a service type services now. And the challenge for me is that in any business, whether it's one that we run or one that they run, if there's demand, there's going to be supply. And one of the challenges that we see at the moment with ransomware is that a lot of companies, the way that they approach this is that they make sure that they're insured, and then they pay the ransom as soon as they get hit with ransomware that enables them to get back up and running as quickly as possible. The challenge here is that you're meeting their supply, right? You're producing that demand for the customer, and so they're going to keep doing it, right? And so we see now, researchers will tell you that a lot of companies that are hit by ransomware are hit again almost immediately by ransomware. So there's a really interesting conversation that we probably, I would love to have, that we probably don't have time to have now, but about the role of cyber insurance in ransomware and how we as a community, as a security community and a business community, can really start to defeat the ransomware attack vector. And I think part of that has to be, how do we stop paying ransoms? And some of that is by being more resilient and being better at backups and making sure that we don't need to claim on the insurance. But maybe insurance companies need to be more selective about when they pay out ransoms as well.
Oh, that's a great point. So I'll tee up a question. Pay or do not pay? What are your thoughts? Karen,
Wow, I've been through several ransomware attacks already with, customers and clients across the last few years. And I gotta say, I wouldn't pay. I mean, I wouldn't. I agree with Daniel. I think it feeds the beast. Mm-hmm. And when we go back, I think it's a learning for the client and the customer to be more resilient. I mean, that's what we preach. We tell them to do this, do that. But I gotta say, it's just feeding the beast. We've got to find another way.
Gotcha. Brandon, any other thoughts? Is there ever a reason to pay?
If you want to say no, right? You want to say no, and it really depends on how good are you from restoring, right? You think about the data and what you're backing up, and you're thinking about you have systems that are important. Well, you don't understand the blast radius of ransomware when it's taking place, when you're in the firefight, right? And you think about hitting return time or return point objectives, which is really how long you gotta store stuff and then how quickly do you have to restore. But what happens when multiple systems are compromised and your business stops? What happens if the data that you've been backing up has coincidentally had the ransomware that's on it and you're forced to restore that? So it's really a difficult thing to answer, and the landscape has not really figured that out yet. You've got the average ransom being paid out, depends on where you look at it, $5 million or $200,000 on average, right? You have the FBI saying there's 2,000 ransomware events that have been brought to their attention, right? And so obviously something's not working. We have to change it. We have to be really focused on really balancing the detection, the response with how good are you? Can you restore? Can you resume? Do you really know what that means outside of the technology? Have you exercised the plan? Do you really understand what it means when there's 12 presidents of a product coming to your door and you have to go through and pick it in some kind of an order to generate revenue? So it's a hard thing to say.
Is there any advice that either of you would provide? Like, if there was a company looking to get started, ransomware preparedness, what are the first 3 to 4 things that you would do first?
There's an awful lot of things. I think the biggest thing that you can do from the beginning is think about security up front, right? All too often, we build the business, like we build our processes, we start collecting our data, and then somebody puts their hand up and says, hey, did we think about, normally compliance, hey, did we think about compliance? And then that drives a security conversation. So the first thing that, I would advise people to do is think very, very early on about your data and about how you're going to secure it. And then that will lead to conversations about where are we backing up our data, where are those backups being stored, do we have an offline version of those backups as well. And I'll let the other guys talk because there's an awful lot of individual things that I think are important to think about. But the first and best advice I think is think about security early and bake it in from the beginning.
That's great.
Yeah, I would think the first thing I would tell someone is not only that, but I would also tell them, where's your data? Do you know what your data is? Do you know where it goes? Do you know where that data's flowing? And do you know the 80-20 rule? You're not going to protect 80% of the data. It's impossible. What's the 20%? Know it, lock it up, protect it like Fort Knox. But when you go through your testing, and we all go through, doing testing throughout the year, we do tabletop exercises. As you go through those, do a tabletop exercise on ransomware. figured out if you got hit, not how good you are protecting it, how good and how fast can you recover that data. Test that piece. That's the piece people forget to test. They test and go, oh yeah, we protected the data, we've got the right precautions in it, and they forget to test the piece about how fast it takes to bring it back up again.
That's great. Brandon.
Yeah, just to add on, involve the top in the decision making, right? So think about the techniques that are in place right now. Adversaries are doing research on companies. They're introducing extortion techniques. So think about, if you have all of the employees' data out there, right? And you've received that letter, and it's an extortion technique because they understand that it's publicly traded information, or it's very sensitive information, or it could be potentially damning. And what are the decisions that need to be made to make the right call? And also, who's going to negotiate that on your behalf? Do you know, right? Because when you're in the middle of a firefight or a crisis, it's a difficult time to plan and start to respond to that. So make sure that you're taking advantage of what's going on in the landscape and introducing that to your actual plan and exercise it. Be provocative, have those difficult conversations with the folks that are the key decision makers as part of that.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about ransomware. We talked a little bit about other risks that we've seen over the last couple of years. What innovative strategies and approaches are you using to remediate some of the risks that we just talked through? Daniel.
Every security team has a crusty old operations guy, and for Bitdefender, that's probably me. So I sort of default to operations when I think about capabilities and the things that we're doing. I think the thing that's having the biggest impact on security operations at the moment that we've incorporated into our operation is automation, right? Automation enables us to remove complexity from the operation. Complexity is the enemy of security, so we want to keep things as simple as we can. But with the advent of SOAR platforms, security orchestration and response platforms, which really kind of started about 4 or 5 years ago, you're now in a position where you can start thinking from the beginning, like, what can I automate? How am I going to collect my data? How am I going to tag it? How do I normalize my data in a way that actually encourages automation within the operation? So it means that you can have one set of data, right? It means that you can automate that data to the different parts of the operation. It means that you can enrich the investigations that the analysts are doing, and the analysts can react much faster and understand what's going on and who's involved much quicker than we could before when we were reaching back into the threat intel team and into different parts of the organization. So I think, automation and automation platforms and the way that automating strategies are being incorporated into security operations is really game changing at the moment, and it is changing the way security operations are being built and delivered.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Or Daniel. Karen, off to you.
Definitely automation. The next one I would go through is behavioral analytics. I mean, it's been a lot that we've done in the last several years about getting rid of passwords. I mean, they're passé already. And we really need to find ways of using behavioral analytics. That's coming in to get rid of passwords altogether. I know some people that's a very scary thing, but it's a very thing that we have to do. There's too many passwords out there. People can't remember all of them. All the tricks we've used, all the tricks I've told people over the years to use. So we're seeing a lot of good stuff about behavioral analytics. So it's basically monitoring your performance on how you use your systems on a daily basis. And I track that, and I use that as your behavior. Think of it as a normal cell phone. So you've got a normal mobile phone, and I know a lot of you. I look at my husband's phone all the time for different things because he's got different apps than I do. And when I go into his apps, I go in differently than he does. It's a behavior. You just go in differently. When you shop online, so my husband will shop on Amazon. He goes directly into Amazon. I don't. I go around the round. I go look for different products. Then I go into Amazon. It's a behavior that I do over and over again. So an adversary doesn't know my behavior. They go, oh, you just go into Amazon. No, I don't. I go in a roundabout way. So capturing that behavior, and you can do it in the industry and the work. Capture the employee's behavior, and then they go in that way all the time. They use certain keywords. They go to certain screens. Some go directly to something. Some go through 3 other applications. Correct that, capture it, that's their behavior. If we start looking more at behavior, we can start slowly getting those passwords out. And I think there's a lot of good stuff coming out with password.
Awesome, thank you. Brandon, over to you.
I think that the identity-centric or more identity-focused security strategies are really where the shift is going to be. Really making sure that you understand, to Karen's point, who you're working with and how do you prove who you're working with, whether it's behavioral analytics or just securing the entitlements, the privileges, or even introducing things that are closer to zero standing permissions, right? So something is actually turned off until the point that you actually need it. So it's very important to just really consider understanding data flowing, knowing where your data comes in. Are you primarily managing data through email, through portals, through some form of an integration? That's important because it's going to shift and move into your environment, and it's going to pool somewhere. And then that's going to be the basis for a lot of your protections. Then you're not going to be able to have a data protection program unless you can answer the question, who needs access to that data, and do they really need access to the data? So that's more of an identity-centric approach to things, and we're seeing a shift in that direction. We're also seeing that with more of the security organizations taking more of a pronounced ownership in identity, right? And so it's important, whether fraud protection, account takeover, or just being able to secure your workforce or contract third-party resources as well, very, very important to make sure that that's the focus. So I think there's going to be a shift and an embrace of identity-centric security strategies.
Awesome, thank you, thank you. So we have one last question, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So please start to get your questions ready for us. So last question we have is if somebody in the audience was looking to get into cybersecurity, and one of the biggest risks we have is talent. 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity positions. How would they go about it? So, Daniel, kick it over to you first.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I've built 7 security operations centers in total, and I've built 2 in the last 5 years, and I've probably interviewed 500-600 analysts in inverted commas on resumes, and it's really, really hard to find talent. And consequently, I get a lot of people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, cyber, I really want to get into cyber. How do I get into cyber?" A lot of IT people, how do I get into cyber? I think the biggest challenge that I see and where I would tell people to start is that cyber's not a thing in and of itself, right? Within the cyber industry, within the cyber profession, there's lots and lots and lots of different things that we're talking about, from defensive infrastructure engineers to security analysts to threat researchers to even like lots of organizations will break up things like threat hunters and investigators and responders into different functions and different people fulfilling those functions. And then you've got pen testing and all of those things as well, right? So my advice to start with would be go and understand what the industry consists of. Go and understand what all of those different component parts are. And if you know that, then you're in a position that you can actually reach out to somebody within the industry, and they can give you meaningful advice. So, if you know someone wants to get here, you can help them plot a path to get there. But if all they know is that they want to be in cyber, it's like saying, I want to be in IT, right? There's lots and lots and lots of things that you can go and do. So, so be very thoughtful and do a little bit of research on the industry. And the last thing that I'll just kind of tack onto it, because I think it's really important, is cyber's moving all the time. It's evolving all the time. Bad guys are innovating all the time. And so it's a very fast moving industry. The thing that I've seen that hasn't changed, the thing that has been common from when I started, I've been doing this for 30 years, probably, cyber's probably been the last 10, 12 years or so of it. But something that hasn't changed at all is the best analysts, the best cyber people know how to think like bad guys, right? They know how to put themselves in the shoes of the bad guy and start thinking about what are they doing now, what must they have done before, what are they likely to do next, right? So that analytical thinking and that being able to think like a bad guy is something that will probably be valid for whatever element within cybersecurity that you end up in.
Awesome, thank you. Karen, your thoughts?
Definitely know where you want to go, or have an idea. Get a mentor. Really get a mentor who's in the space or been around the space for a while, because they'll guide that career. But I would tell you, don't let what you've done in your past or what career you're studying, don't let that hold you back. You're a history major, we want you in cybersecurity. You got an arts major, we want you in cybersecurity. If you're analytical, if you have a curiosity, if you want to learn, if you like to be on fire all day long, and you like that challenge and changing environment, cybersecurity, folks, I am perfect example. I'm a political science major, and I ended up in cybersecurity. I love it. It's the challenge I was looking for. I like being with my hair on fire all day. I got a team back there that works for me or worked for me. They will tell you exactly what I'm like. I switch modes throughout the day. I like that. It's where I thrive. If you get a nice calm day, I'm not thriving. I would tell you, if you like that kind of excitement, you like to be on all the time, take a look at cybersecurity. It really is. I think it's a career. I tell people all the time, it's a career. It's not a job. It's a career that will last a lifetime. And because of the changes and challenges we see daily, this is not the same field I started in 20 years ago. It's not the same field I was in 5 years ago. It's because of all the stuff we see. And if you like playing chess, think like an adversary. You got to be one step ahead of them. So those are that's the advice I'd give someone even considering cybersecurity.
Awesome. Great advice. Great advice. Brandon?
Yeah, to bring those 2 points together, I think, Daniel mentioned it's like entering into IT. I think it's kind of like entering into medicine. You can be a foot doctor or a brain surgeon. That is the world of cybersecurity. And when you think about that, the world is yours for the trying. So if you're just getting into it, knowing what you don't like is as important as you know what you do like. So keep an inventory of that. Don't be afraid to try those new things, because it's super, super important as you evolve and as the landscape evolves that you just get some of those essential things down. The other thing too, you just cannot overstate having a mentor, somebody that is genuinely vested in your success and your growth. A sounding board is so essential to this. It gets hard, right? It gets hard, especially as you go through increasing responsibility, making shifts. Should I do this or that? It's super, super important. And here's another reason why it's important. Paul mentioned 3.5 million jobs out there right now. The workforce right now, 11% of the cybersecurity workforce is female. We could do better than that, right? We can go through and mentor and make sure that we make the right change through mentorship, allowing the right opportunities, and filling those roles. It's on us as leaders, it's on us as an industry to go through and share what you know. At the same time, if you're in a position to mentor, do it. Academia, network. Just yesterday, I was at an event. There were 2 $500 scholarships that nobody didn't even apply to for cybersecurity, right? So there's a lot of stuff to take advantage of. Just get out there, find the right mentor, have the right conversations, and try.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you all. Thank you all. All right, let's take our first question. We have a mic right up here, so who would like to ask the first question? Everyone's looking around. It's going to be somebody. There we go. All right. Come on up. Come on up.
Ice. All right.
So this question, it kind of goes off of what you all were just talking about. So I currently work in a high school. We have a cybersecurity pathway. I guess my question is, how do you get that next workforce interested in cyber, right? Like, what can I do in the school, and what can all the analysts and people in cyber today do now to keep those students interested? Because right now they're seeing it as, I don't want to sit in a computer all day. They don't realize how big it is, like you said, from a brain surgeon to a foot doctor. They don't know, because it's not something they see every day.
I'll take that one. You got 3 people right here. 4. You link in, you get us to come to those schools and talk.
Exactly.
I've talked to a lot of colleges and high schools, especially around, no offense, gentlemen, especially around women getting into cybersecurity. Yeah. I've talked to mathematicians getting into cybersecurity. I've talked to women forums. Go to high schools, get people at cybersecurity professionals that will come to high schools, and they'll talk to students. Because like I said, some students will might go, oh, I really love art, I want to be an artist. Oh wait, there's no money in it, I need a real job. Cybersecurity, I mean, why not, So definitely, come, explore, come to cyber, ask us. I mean, a lot of us are more than willing to come to high schools, colleges, and talk to students. And it's really great to talk to them when they're in high school and when they're deciding what the next step they want to go into college.
Thank you.
That's great.
Internship programs, Cyber Texas, SA Jobs, the great work that Geekdom's doing here. There's a lot of things to get involved. One of the first things we do when we talk to that demographic, that whole world of young evolving minds, is just even showing them like the threat maps, right? The utility of the threat maps isn't when you're actually a practitioner is not really there. But when you see the volume of attacks and things that look like wow, it's captivated, it kind of plants a seed that gets folks involved and interested. So just some of those things, most folks are really engaged, and it's the next generation. It's important. And the threat actors are going to be there. It's a fantastic career, and it's something that we just have to do. So lots of great San Antonio organizations to get involved with.
So, totally agree with both of those points. The only thing I would add to it as well is, and I really like going out to the schools and the colleges and talking to kids. Like I learn something every time I have the opportunity to do it. So you're never going to find somebody in a position like ours that says no, like if we get invited to go do it. So, but I find with kids they're really hands-on, right? They want to go do something. So I think find the flag exercises and those types of competitions, like actual exercises where we can get their fingers on keyboards and get them doing something is really inspiring for the guys, and they want, makes them want to stay involved.
That was great. So one couple things to add. So I have a 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we get them to Code Ninjas once a week. And the way we got them in there, it's like they saw this huge T-Rex robotic thing, and it started just moving on its own. It's like, do you want to go build something like that? That's what they've been doing for the last 6 weeks, and that really got them excited. Then, to get them hooked, they love playing Roblox, they love playing Minecraft, and it's like, hey, did you know if you can build your own map in Roblox and your own skins, you can put that out there to your friends, to your cousins, to anybody else, and you can get dollars from that, right? And they're like, they got so excited. They don't know they're coding, they don't know they're getting involved in these things, they think they're just having fun. So how do you make it fun at that age to hopefully get them excited and hopefully engaged later on as they grow up? So we'll see. I'll keep everyone updated.
Thank you.
Great question. Great question.
Thank you.
Yes, come on up. Come on up.
Hi. So I heard a couple of y'all mention that mentorship was really important. So I work for a lady named Denise Waymeyer, and she is a leadership coach for women in cybersecurity. She does individual and team workshops. So is there any need for her in your organizations? Maybe we can talk a little bit after this, or is there any way that you can recommend that we connect with those people that need our help so that we can help mentor people, and especially women, help them to reach that next level that they're trying to achieve?
Absolutely. I'll definitely talk with you about it. And I always tell people, too, when you get to a certain point in your career and you get asked to be a mentor, you have a lot of years and experience. I tell people, I ain't taking this information with me. I'm going to be irrelevant the day I walk out the door. No one's going to want to talk to me when I retire because I'm not in the thick of it anymore. When you get to a certain point in your career, I don't care what field you're in, when you get asked to mentor, it's not, well, the answer is always yes, folks. You didn't acquire this information on your own. You got to leave it before you leave. You really have to mentor the people that are coming up behind you, because there's a whole army behind me that got me to where I was. So I think it's important that we do mentor, we do step up, and I think it's interesting to share knowledge across industries too. There's a CISO forum that we all belong to here in San Antonio, and just to get to see how other things are done at other banks or other industries, it's interesting for me. I'm sitting in a technology company. I worked in a bank before for cybersecurity, but you kind of lose that, like, oh, I don't remember that. So it's nice to share those experiences, and you'd be surprised how much of us connect. So yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Anybody else? I'm definitely interested, so let's...
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Please.
I think any of us are happy to go and talk to anyone, and anything we can do to help, we absolutely will do. And something else, mentoring is not just about getting into the industry, right? I've got people on my team, females on my team. We are a fairly, for a cyber organization, a decent level of diversity within the group, and they're all at different levels of their career, right? So they've all got different needs, but they've also got different things to offer from a mentoring point of view. I've got security analysts and threat intelligence analysts and all types of people at different levels of their careers. So the more we can connect the dots and get the right people in front of the right people, the more help we can be.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next question.
Hello. So 2 points that really stuck out in this presentation. First was know your function when you're going through cybersecurity, but also the idea of more people are being more aware of like threats like with ransomware and such. As someone whose background is anthropology, is there any particular areas of like the field that focuses on like the human side, making sure people are aware of the threats in the field, making sure like not just saying, okay, ransomware, that's threatening and such, more so like, oh, wow, ransomware, I should really pay more attention to this rather than just like on my way through the briefings or whatever.
Great question.
Yeah.
Who would like to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Security awareness. It's a huge, I mean, like I said, years ago when I got into security, you know, you'd go out to a business unit and they'd go, oh, isn't that like your job? Now people realize that security is the enterprise's job. And so it's by education. You know, we educate. I have a leader in the back of the room, by the way, who does cyber threat intelligence. And we share that knowledge. We actually share it, not only across Rackspace, but we share it with our customers. Why not? You know, if we can help a customer out, if we see something on a customer in the dark net, or we see a new threat coming out, we actually share it. We share it across Rackspace, and we also share it across our customer and client base. Because we feel the more knowledge they have, it breaks up the conversation, we talk more, but you'd be surprised how many business clients, I get a lot of account teams that come to me and go, I got a client and they want to talk to the CISO, will you talk to them? And I'm like, sure, I'll talk to them. And they might not be buying the security service Rackspace offers. They just have security questions within their organization. So myself and my leaders will go and we'll talk to customers on a regular basis. And they're asking good questions nowadays. You didn't get that 20 years ago. So definitely we do a lot around security awareness and education now.
I think also it's really a team sport, and what you learn on your soft skills or your communication skills is really about building relationships. Because if you don't have one, it's going to be very, very difficult to go through and actually have a conversation to be able to speak on someone else's terms. The other thing to consider too is a lot of the attacks, a lot of these things are based on game theory, really, and some of the things that are out there. And so exploring and understanding how people interact in those types of scenarios, there is some applicability into some of the strategies and thought process. So, you know, the way that you communicate, the way that, you know, organizations work together, getting rid of the us and them, treating it as a team sport, making sure folks are aware, understanding how they learn and communicate, essential to a successful program.
I think we're really bad at security awareness training as an industry, not just security teams, but businesses in general. Like, I think that, you know, how many of you do the security training every year and, you know, you got two screens open and you're watching YouTube and clicking through the thing, not paying attention to it. The truth is security is different. Everybody's security landscape is different. Everybody's role is different. Everybody is exposed to different types of threats. And I think that as security organizations, we have to get much more specific about the training that we give to different parts of the business. You know, somebody who is in sales that is getting on airplanes, who is logging on to Wi-Fi networks in airports and in cafes, has a completely different threat landscape in front of them than, you know, than the HR guy who works in the office at the same computer every day, using the same tools every day, but we train them in the same way, and we expect them all to remember everything, right? So I think security awareness, if we want it to be meaningful, has to be contextualized to the individuals that we're training. I don't mean everybody has to get it, but different parts of the organization who work in different ways should be trained in a way that is gonna protect them.
And I'll add one more thing. So when we first started COVID, one of the person in my network that I was talking to, they work for another major credit card company, came to me and they developed a program for kids, all about cybersecurity awareness. And it was brilliant. And they did it for the company, because they were doing homeschooling by then, and people were all working from home and stuff. And they devised a program for kids that taught them about how to protect their password, how to behave on Zoom, what's the proper thing on Zoom, mute, unmute. And it was a brilliant program. They did it. And they did it for just their employees. And I said, you got something there. I'd sell that if I was you. So just a brilliant idea to get security awareness out there early and young. I mean, if you ask my two kids, they're university age now, if you ask them about security, I'm telling you, they could probably read the Bible to you. And by the way, neither of them want to go into cybersecurity. But they've learned early on about Facebook. Neither of my kids are on it. They've learned about how to protect their information when they're talking to someone. And they learned it early on because of me. So, I mean, teaching them early on is great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Next question. All right.
Oh, no.
I always get worried when they come up with a notebook.
Yes.
Yeah, I just have trouble remembering things as usual. If it's okay, I just had a few questions. Two were about the previous topics that were already mentioned. One was as far as when we talk about backups and the importance of how quickly you can restore data, should companies be taking into account tools and be willing to pay the additional money to go with something like Commvault, where you can prioritize which data is restored first? So for medical facilities that have been caught in those ransomware attacks and things like that, I was curious what the thoughts were there. The other question was, as you were talking about everybody working from home, some users coming into the office, as we look at that now, and some users will come back, what are your thoughts on actually taking out a lot of NAC and removing a lot of that switching infrastructure, and instead using your existing remote access products to where everybody instead connects to wireless, and from there, you instead use those tools to log in, and investing the money in those tools instead so that you get the best product for your needs?
Gotcha.
Right.
Let's take the backup question first, and then we'll come back to the second one.
Yeah, so related to the backup strategy and some of the technologies to consider, you have your traditional tools, and the context of the data really matters that's going in. Most recently, there's some technologies and companies like Rubrik, as an example, that go in and can contextualize it and ensure that the data that's going in is actually relatively clean, right? And so going back to one of the things that we stated earlier, there is a danger of backing up the data and restoring data that has the malware in it, that has the ransomware in it. And so you need to understand that. You don't just wholesale go through and do this. And if you're backing up and not restoring, then you have no idea. So it's less about the tools and more about, can you contextualize the data that's going in and ensure that you can restore in a timely and clean way. And so that's very, very important when you consider not just the tool-centric of their technologies, but what are the filters or what are the things that go in and ensure, give you a high degree of confidence that the data is going in clean, that you can actually recover and restore. Then exercise, right? Exercise, practice, practice, practice. That's so essential.
I think any technology decision is a business decision, right? It's not going to be the same for every company. It depends on your business model and what the business drivers are. So, you've got to start thinking through how important is speed to me in this case, right? And it could be, if it happens the day before Black Friday, you might be willing to spend a lot more money to get up and running as quickly as possible versus, if it happens in the middle of February or something. So there's always going to be business drivers that are driving the decision on where you spend the money and the technology platforms that you spend it on. So, as a security guy, I'll tell you that the faster and the more efficiently that you can get back up and running, the better. But the reality is that those decisions are going to be based on the businesses that you're operating in and the priorities of that business.
All right, second question.
And my apologies. Second question would be, so as people are coming back in, thoughts on possibly reducing the existing switching infrastructure inside of the offices and instead relying on a wireless network instead and using your VPN products, we'll use that term, to have users use that as a NAC instead, so we know that the appropriate devices are getting on your network.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think the shaping of traffic with the workforce that will remain, this is going to be a challenge for all of us. And so, again, looking at the way that data is flowing from a network perspective, you have to really consider that overall architecture, to your point. So you're going to have to figure out a way to understand if there's attack that's originating from an access point or a wireless access point that is your home router. Like, what provisions do you have? How can you detect those kinds of things? Do you have endpoint detection and response that's looking for something that's banging on that laptop, and are you able to go through and tune and correlate and make sure that you can respond to those? Those are things that we've experienced that were, relatively new, right? Mm-hmm. It's going through, sitting down, there's new indicators of compromise, there's new indicators of attack, there's bigger vectors that are happening at the home network. And so the other thing too is informing your workforce. When was the last time you changed your home router password? Mm-hmm. When's the last time you updated your Nest? When's the last time you updated your whatever it is? Because those things are becoming compromised. And if you keep a persistent network open, you've now allowed all of those things to go into your network. And so it's really important to consider, going back to what I'm continuing to foot stomp, where data's coming and going, mm-hmm. Who are you working with, so that you can go through and distill the things that are anomalous. So that's the overall approach without just directly talking about, VPN access. It's just that layered approach, but from a different context.
Yeah, and I think it is new. I mean, John actually works with me on my team, and it is an area that we're exploring. I mean, rogue asset, watching those assets that are coming in and out, what are they doing, what are they transferring, are they a legitimate asset, are they transforming and moving data legitimately, or are they not? We have assets that may show up as a rogue asset, and it's not really a rogue asset, it's just an employee that didn't follow the process. So really examining all that, but it's a field that we're just breaking into.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns right at the moment. I think the important thing is that we're having these conversations. That the worst thing that could happen is that we all go back to the office and just set the clock back to 2 years and carry on the way that we were beforehand. We've learned a lot of things over the last 2 years about, hardening the network when people are at home, defending individuals, understanding behavioral analytics much better because everything changed, right? You create a baseline for everybody being in the office and then suddenly no one's in the office and all of your analytics is wrong now, right? So we've learned a lot of lessons. We've learned to be a lot more agile. We've got much better at anomaly detection and baselining. And so it would be a terrible shame if we just turned the clock back and went back to where we were.
Thank you very much.
Next question. All right.
I have a more simple question about the passwords. As a computer tech, when you said getting rid of passwords, my jaw dropped. Do you mean replacing that with the finger technology or facial recognition, or getting rid of passwords altogether?
Getting passwords altogether would be an ideal, and using more behavioral analytics, biometrics. It's using all of that instead of passwords anymore. We're a long way from that, but just starting in that field, we're seeing a lot more innovative products and tools come out and solutions on how we can move forward on that. So I don't think we're there yet, but I definitely think it's the future.
Okay.
And I know that scares a lot of people that have been in the industry for a long time when you go, yeah, we're getting rid of passwords. But it really is, it is the wave of the future with biometrics and, analytics right now.
Any other recommendations on passwords or a good approach, even on the consumer side of things?
Use a password manager. Please stop trying to use, just trying to remember them yourself.
Yes.
Using the same password for every application and all those things. Just use a password manager. It's much better.
Does anybody have a password manager that they're using today?
Good.
1, 2, 3. Oh, look. Oh,
Great.
Awesome.
There you go.
Awesome.
That's great.
Get rid
Be
of
like these
get rid of
people.
the sticky
Be like these
notes, that sit around, or that notebook that you have with all of them in there. Get rid of all those.
Yes, if you guys can do me a favor really quick. Who has an iPhone? Open up your iPhone. Go to settings. You go to settings, scroll down, go to passwords. When you go to passwords, it'll tell you how many of your passwords are compromised, either on the dark web, have been reused over multiple websites. Show of hands, who has more than 10? One, oh no. Sebastian, no. Okay. 2. Who has more than 20? Anybody have more than 50? With the smiles, I think that's more than 50. So homework for everyone today, please go through that and start to reset those passwords and make it a little bit something more complex. And recommendation is use a password manager. I do this every week in orientation. So the largest number I had was 120. So hopefully no one has over 120.
That's the foot stomp to why passwords don't work, right?
Yeah.
Use
Yes.
that password manager.
Yeah.
All right, next question. All right, come on up.
Hello, okay. As you are trying to further security awareness in your organizations, how would you say the organizational structure impacts what you're trying to do? And then what kind of strategies do you have to reach across to the business units who aren't in IT to further the security awareness you're trying to educate them on?
I think one of the things we do at Rackspace, and we do it really fairly well, is we change it up a lot. So we do different things at different times throughout the year. We don't do it just once. We don't do it just when you start off and you take the security awareness training. We don't do it just in October for October awareness. And we try to reach out to the different businesses. We actually do lunch and learns. So we educate them, and we talk non-cybersecurity because they don't know our terms. They don't live in my head, so I have to kind of at times, change the English that I'm using and the verbiage that I'm using so they get it. So when I talk about an adversary, I usually use the word bad guy so they get it. I tell them it's like, think of it as, I use a lot of, think of it as playing chess. That's what we do for incident response. We're trying to anticipate the adversary's next move, and that's how it's a game that we play with them. So we're always trying to be one step ahead. So I think it's just getting out to the business. It's not enough to do a security awareness, even once a month. It's actually talking to the different business units. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? At Rackspace, we go to a lot of the account teams and say, what are you hearing? What are your customers asking you? What can we do more of? And we try to get that information out there in language that they can understand.
It's really hard, right? I think this is, I said earlier that I think we do it badly, like organizations in general do it badly. There's lots of strategies that you can use. I think something that I've seen work really well is having a security representative or a kind of security champion in different parts of the organization that meets with the security team, is aware of things that are going on, can spread that information and can kind of act as a voice in those organizations. Because typically security teams are small. There's a lot of work and not many resources to do it. I'm going to just tweak your question a little bit because I think it's really interesting. Where I think organizational structure is really impactful within the security team is really for the time that the business decision-making process, right, and when security gets baked into it. And all too often what happens is business decisions get made, technology decisions get made, and then at some point the CISO gets brought in and it's like, hey, we made this decision, we decided to do this thing, we bought this tool, we spun up this infrastructure, whatever it may be, and now they've got security questions. And I think that that's a consequence of having the security organization buried usually in the IT organization, right? And I think that having the security organization out of that organizational structure, reporting to the CEO or reporting to the board, but being at the table when those business decisions are being discussed and made would be hugely valuable to the business and would save the business an awful lot of money because now they're not scrambling to catch up and reduce risk after the decisions have been made. But I know it's not exactly what you asked. But.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that you use the resources you have at your disposal. Most organizations have a marketing function or a communication function or an HR team, and involve them in the strategy, right? So making sure that you're hitting the right channels in the way that your internal customer base is talking. And the way that they prefer to communicate. And you're communicating to them on their own terms. They are your customers. So these are challenging things when you want to go and change behavior. And an embedded approach, somebody that's there in the trenches to help you push and work through the problem versus something that's being introduced onto you is essential. So we call them essential practices. We call them a business partner model. We call it an embedded approach. When you take that approach, you remove the us and them, and you typically have a little bit more opportunity to have a casual conversation about whatever topic you would like. So use the resources you have, marketing teams, comms teams, HR teams, and then address it strategically.
Awesome, thank you. We have time for one more question, and if you did not get a chance to ask your question, we will be around after the event as well. All right.
Hi. I'm actually that female that is looking to go from being an emergency manager to getting into cybersecurity. Awesome. So what should my pathway be to succeed in that goal?
Want me to go?
Yeah, I think it's, what are your interests in technology, right? Do you have an interest in a particular area, and to start to explore that? So there is value in getting some, I would say, industry certification, right? Some exposure into the things and reading the bodies of knowledge that are out there to kind of get a broad sense of what's out there. So I think that's important, is really to start there. Involve yourself in some of the organizations that are here in San Antonio, like ISSA or there's some great programs like at Hallmark College and some other areas that will just get you involved and get you some information to kind of start to plot your destiny, and then you'll project manage that, right? Make sure that you're project managing yourself. So you're in one field right now, you want to get into another one, make sure you have a gut check, that you're checking along the way, and that you're going to find things that you like, you don't like, but make sure that you're managing it like a project, because it's so important. You're effectively going through a transformation. So that's my advice. Go through, understand, make a couple of tangible goals, and then just gut check along the way.
And if you're not sure what area you want to go in, if the company that you work for today has a cybersecurity department, ask if you can shadow somebody. Can you spend a couple hours shadowing somebody that does threat intelligence, or that somebody that's working on an incident, and be that fly on the wall for a while? That'll help you kind of zero in to see what do you like. I mean, there are people in cybersecurity that like to sit back and look at monitors. That's their thing. They really like to watch and analyze and look at the data that comes across. There are some that like their hair on fire all day long and go, I really love running incidences, and that's what I enjoy doing, and somebody will like that. Some like the actual compliance and the fraud area within cybersecurity. So spend some time shadowing in an organization. That really helps too, because that'll give you a feel. You can read a book and find out what all the domains are of security, but if you're like, not really sure, go in and sit and shadow or intern. That's always another great way to do it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think the guys covered it. You said, what should my journey be? To have a journey, you got to know what your destination is first, right? So you kind of got to get there. I think what the guy said is exactly right. The only thing I would add, the cyber community has got really vocal and really active on social media, right? So it's just another resource for you to go and ask questions, right? And lots of people on there will be very vocal. They'll have opinions. They'll answer your questions. You'll get different answers to the questions. And so I think that's a really good area as well, especially if you're at the beginning and you're really just trying to figure out what sounds interesting to me, what might I be good at, what don't I want to do, as Brandon said earlier, is a good thing as well. So don't be afraid to go and ask questions on social media. There's a lot of people out there who are there to help and willing to help.
And I would say attend events like this. I mean, I told Brandon, I would have loved events like this when I started off in my career for networking. It's just a great place to network and get to know somebody and connect with them as you go along in your career too.
Yes, my next question would be, I need a mentor. That really helped me in my emergency management career. And so where would I go to find that mentor?
Yeah,
let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Be more than happy.
Okay, great. Well, wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so
Great
much.
questions.
All right. Let's give it up to our panelists. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all, the panel, for coming out. Paul, Daniel, Karen, and what was your last name? Brandon. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. And thank you all the sponsors. We're going to do more events like this coming up next year, so keep an eye out for that. If you guys haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, we have some QR codes in the back, but we'd love to have you guys come out for the future events. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great day. And don't forget your lunches downstairs.
Find out what it means to me.